So the first thing that I wanted to talk to you guys about, because there's a lot of ignorance out there, especially on the internet, about what a union is. So why don't you guys tell? And then for us as business owners, we don't have unions at our workplaces. And we'll tell you guys more about like what it is that we do and how we handle certain situations. But why don't y'all tell us what a union actually is and what the purpose of a union actually is in the workplace?
Yeah, Adam, you want to take that away?
Sure. Yeah, I'll start, and Jacob, you fill in where I miss. A union is just a voluntary organization of workers coming together. And that's it in the nutshell. Now, there's legal definitions of unions, and there's legal recognitions of unions. And that's where you see, the elections that take place, or in some cases, the company volunteers to recognize the union. But at its core, it's the workers, as opposed to like people in management. It's going to be people who can't hire or fire. The workers who show up, sell their labor for a living in exchange for a salary, they can come together, form an organization. And the idea behind it is strength in numbers. As the collective, as the organization of workers coming together, you have more bargaining power. You have more influence over your working conditions, your benefits, your pay, the way you're treated at work, because it changes the balance of power. As an individual in the workplace, you often have very little power compared to your bosses or the owners of the company. But as a union, by coming together, you shift that dynamic. And now it allows you as a worker with your fellow workers to try to negotiate a better life for yourself, particularly in the workplace. And that would be my definition of a union. I'm sure we could get into some of the specifics later about like what folks don't like about them, what folks do like about them, how businesses can relate to unions, and like, does it have to be adversarial or collaborative? So we can get into all that, I guess, later, but that's how I would define it. Jacob, did I miss anything?
No, I think that's exactly right. I think, there are other conversations about how mechanically some of that stuff works, what exactly bargaining looks like. But yeah, I think you nailed it. A union is just an organization of working people coming together to make their lives better, particularly as it relates to the job.
Okay, great. If y'all see us down or looking down or doing whatever, we're writing and taking notes. It's just something that we're not ignoring. We're listening to what you're saying. We're just taking notes and making sure, because I went around today and yesterday since we talked, Jacob, and I was just asking random people in random places, because me and Sherrod do that a lot. We are very extroverted. We can talk to anybody, absolute strangers. So we were just asking what a union was. They do not know. That's the consensus that I've come to. They do not know. So, and I have a general idea of what a union is because I used to deliver packages for UPS during their peak season for Christmas time.
Mm-hmm. This
they make good money to deliver.
Job, bro. Every job.
I've worked a lot of places. I've worked at Sonic, Waffle House. I have a lot of experience. I have a lot of it. I worked at the Sonic that was right down the street from the Grissom you work. Yeah, that's where I work.
Oh, okay, cool.
That's where I worked at. So I have a lot of experience being an employee, right? But that was my first experience with I wasn't in the union because I was a temporary worker. And I just they paid good money to deliver packages in your own car. You're helping people out and get their packages on time, blah, blah, blah. So, but that was my experience with union employees. And one thing that I saw as far as UPS is concerned, and I don't even know if I should be name dropping companies like that, but I think UPS is a publicly traded company. So The one thing that I saw was seniority over everything. It was seniority over everything. Like there are certain things that certain people at the United Parcel Service like are getting away with that they said it was like if you haven't been here for, if you have the people that get time off over other people, like if you wanted to take vacation and you've only been working there a year, but the guy that's been working there for 10 years also wants to take a vacation, he's been there longer than you, he's going to get that vacation over you because he's been there longer than you have. So that was one thing. And then I saw, certain individuals that would, they had been with the company longer and they were doing less work than people that have been with the company for a shorter period of time, but they're getting paid more money to do less work and then putting the slack on the individuals that are below them that haven't been working there as much. I definitely saw that. And from what I can understand from the two people that I talked to that actually were in a union, they said, yeah, seniority definitely rules. And they said that they're completely okay with it. Because they feel like people that haven't been with the company as long as they have should be able to have as much of a say as they should. So how do you guys feel? How do you guys feel about that?
Well, I guess I would, you said that the things that you said were that, folks who had seniority got pick of when they wanted to take a vacation, and that sometimes people who, and so, I guess that tackling that issue first, what, is there an issue there? Do you have it, that's a problem?
Definitely.
Do I think that's a problem in my work? Yes, absolutely.
Definitely.
Yeah. Because
well, yeah,
I
I would just disagree. I think that people who have given, 10 years of their lives to a company, most of their waking life, actually, most of the time that they're awake, they're giving to this company. They're selling their labor. They're selling their time. There's nothing more valuable than time. You never get it back. So when you give your labor to a company, and you've done that for 10 years, presumably that's going to be the best 10 years of your life. If I'm 35 years old and I've been working for UPS for 10 years, I have given to UPS the best 10 years of my life. I think that's pretty important. I think that's pretty valuable. And I think
you said something. Go ahead.
Yeah. And I think that I should get something for that. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But also, I would say that the agreements that people are that the unions negotiate with management are negotiated, like Adam said, collectively. And so what does that mean? That means that the workers in the union decide what priorities they want to push in negotiations. And so if you have a workplace, and so in any union workplace, the workers can bargain whatever they want, right? So if a set of workers want to prioritize seniority over everything else, and that's how they want to dole out everything, then that is the workers' prerogative, in my view. If there's another group of workers that wants to value some other sort of things and how you're able to divvy out, vacations or whatever it may be, then they can do that. And that's what workers at UPS have decided that they want to prioritize in their contract. It sounds like, I don't know, I haven't read the contract exactly. I would also imagine that there are some ways that you can get merit bonuses and merit promotions and stuff like that. But sounds like they value seniority pretty heavily, and I think I do too. I value seniority quite a lot. I think if I give 10 years of my life, especially the best 10 years of my life, to a company, then I should get something for that. That's not nothing, right?
Yeah, I like how you said that. Most of the time, these people are awake. They're giving that time to the company. I really like that analogy, and I can see where you come from right there. But picture this. Right. What about competing to the top? What about these young young bucks that's fresh out of college, and they're full of energy and they're ready to bring the company money. And they compete their way to the top. You don't feel like that should be accounted for because they're working hard. They have all this youth. It's just like in sports,
especially if they're working harder than the people that are actually in the seniority.
And they're making more money, for the company than the people that's been there. Now, we're not negating the fact that these people have put their lives on the line and given their life and, work to the top. But what about the people? It's like, the NBA, people are coming out, they're doing 360 windmills in middle school,
Right.
What about that? And the people are looking at that. So like, shouldn't it be a balance?
Yeah, well, I love that you brought up the NBA. I think that's a really fantastic comparison. I think that because with the NBA, I think there's actually a remarkable difference that an individual player can have kind of based on their merit. You're going to make a LeBron James is going to make just an insane amount of money more than a backbencher on, whatever no-name NBA team, right?
Yeah.
And they're compensated in a similar fashion. LeBron James makes way more money. But wait a second, the NBA players have a union. That's how the NBA players negotiated their collective bargaining agreement. The NBA players came together and we said, we reckon it's important that we get paid by this or by that. We're going to set this minimum and this is how we're going to be paid. UPS drivers came together and they said, this is how we want to be paid. And management agreed to that. And that's how UPS drivers decided that they want, that's the contract that they want to work under. And so I think that that's actually a really great thing. And also as a UPS driver, I just don't think it's possible that you're going to have, LeBron James versus backbencher discrepancies in your productivity. Like no matter how you could run, you could speed 20 miles an hour. There's a limit to how much faster you can deliver packages. Right. And so I think that, there's a certain amount of you're just going to do the job and that's how the job is done. And you can't, you can do it better and you can do it worse, but and so I think that kind of, makes a little bit of a difference.
What about doing the job fast and with quality, giving smiles to the customers? What about, the proficiency of that? They're doing that. What if they're outsourcing it? If there's two guys in the truck, which I don't know, I've never worked for UPS. What if they create a system? Because I know when I worked at Amazon, it was all a system. People were running, but if, they were making sure they were running, but also precise. They weren't throwing the packages because you got to think
efficiency. It wasn't just speed. It was
people got ring cameras, so if they're throwing packages all the way around, then
right. And that's another. But when it comes to UPS, there will be situations where you got to remember now. UPS is a very difficult It's a very difficult place to work. UPS has a very high divorce rate. Like you're away from your family. You're missing stuff. You're missing baseball games. You're missing weddings and Christmases and stuff like that, because you got to deliver these packages, right? But there are certain people that work in the organization that deliver packages far slower than other people do, right? So, and I know situations where, it's some people are delivering packages slow on purpose because they know that if they work too fast and they get done, they're going to be called because they say, hey man, I need to go help this guy finish his
rescue missions.
Yeah. They're going to just like, hey, I need you to go rescue this guy because he's not performing at the same level as you are. So I need you to pick up the slack for that guy.
Right.
But you're going to pay the same amount, that's what your contract states. And it's just because I know they negotiate, because unions are just big negotiation. And they negotiate. You would hope that the people that you choose will negotiate very well. You would hope that they negotiate really well for you if you're going to be in a union. And I am not anti-union. Sherrod is not anti-union. But if I put all of the risk when it comes to our companies, if I put all of the risk into building up my company and building up my business to the point that I can hire one guy, I want to have all of the say so in what happens at my business. And I don't want my operating I don't want my operating costs of my business to go up by having a union if I can just connect with my employees better, figure out what my employees want, and create solutions to the problems that are happening inside of the workplace. Now, what I do understand is when it comes to Elon Musk, when it comes to Jeff Bezos, when it comes to Bill Gates, when it comes to these really, really hyper successful business owners, they're not always at the frontline level looking at these guys and seeing what they need. That's why they have management doing that. That's what they're supposed to be doing. But when it comes to our workplace, I would want to create an environment to where my employees don't even they don't need a union, because I want to fight for their right to be able to come in here and work and have a productive and comfortable work environment, because I built the business and I need to have the say in what happens inside of my business. And I want a culture at my company that breeds positivity and efficiency.
We would be blessed in our industry to have a union, because the turnover, people aren't even showing up. So people, you need people. You said it yourself, Adam, there's numbers in the union, right? Where's the numbers at if guys aren't showing up?
It's hard. It's hard to get people to come out and actually do the work out, especially in Alabama. It's hot, it's hot out here. But yeah, so I'm glad that y'all explained what a union is, because now people that watch this video are going to be like, oh, that's what a union is. Now when I actually talk about something, I'll actually know about it instead of me just spilling out stuff that I think, instead of me actually like knowing what it is. So that's really good. Let me ask y'all this, Adam, Jacob. Do y'all feel like every business should have a union? Do y'all feel like every company should have a union?
Yeah.
Well, I'll say I'm also a fan of worker co-ops, and employee-owned cooperatives, which is a different business model. I do think that there's a place for those as well. But there's a couple of things I did want to distinguish between a small business owner who is such a small business that they actually still do the job themselves. Maybe they also hire some people, but they're, in landscaping, they're actually still cutting grass. I think there is a difference between a business so small that the boss is also doing labor versus, a corporation or companies that are big enough to where you have a labor force, but then you also have owners, and the owners don't actually have to go out and build a computer or cut grass or anything like that. They rely on their labor force to create those profits. And of course, profits ultimately are the difference between what the capitalist pays you and the value you're creating, right? They're not going to hire you unless you're creating more value than the wage they're paying you. And that difference, that surplus value there becomes profits. But ultimately that wealth was created through the labor, right? So that I did want to make that distinction. In general, to answer your question, I think every worker deserves a union, but I also think that there is a place for worker cooperatives, employee ownership, where it's a more democratic way of running the workplace. Ultimately, that's what all of it boils down to for me, is democracy and power to the people. I'm not a fan of hierarchy where power is concentrated, vertically in a top down fashion. The more I think we can spread power down to the bottom and among the masses, that's ultimately better for our society. And, unions are a pathway to having democratic operations and input in the workplace. I think something that you said that I jotted down here was about, having a culture in a workplace that's positive to the point where, workers don't feel they need a union. And I would want every business owner to have that mentality, right? Because oftentimes unions arise because there's problems in the workplace, and maybe they're not being treated well. Ideally, every worker would be, treated fairly, paid well, and in a situation where they don't feel they have grievances. But it doesn't have to be adversarial. There are plenty of times where, companies or businesses will voluntarily recognize the union. And it's more of a way of kind of formalizing some of the good things that are already in place. And that's something, I know Jacob makes a point of on the show a lot, that you don't have to hate your job or your boss or your workplace to want a union or to need a union. It could be a way.
Yep. But see, and that right there would be my point of contention. Even if I'm, as a business owner, am doing everything right, my workers can still form a union.
Right. And it doesn't necessarily hurt you in that situation. It doesn't have to. In some cases, it's, if it costs you more than obviously, but let's say you're already paying your people really well. They're happy with the way they're being paid. Maybe they're happy with the vacation they're being provided. Basically, everything is hunky dory. In that case, you could still theoretically lock in the good things that are already in place, but kind of put it in writing, basically, so that if, God forbid, something happens to you, you're incapacitated and someone else takes over the business all of a sudden, right? The good things they liked about your management style would be in a contract, as opposed to, at the whims of whoever were to take over after you or whoever were to buy your company, because that happens a lot where folks, are in a pretty good situation. They have a good job, whether it's union or non-union, they're happy. And then all of a sudden their company gets bought out and they start to see some pretty drastic changes in the way they're treated or compensated, and just the working conditions overall. So that's where I think there are instances where it is not adversarial between union and the company or the employer. It doesn't always have to be. We've reported a lot on like some of the nonprofits that have been unionizing lately. In a lot of cases, it wasn't even, in some cases it was adversarial, but in some cases it was not, because it was more or less locking in the good things they already had in their workplace and then setting up a formal structure to where if, things want to change, on either side, the workers have something they want to change, or the boss has something they want to change, then they can sit down and work it out in a more democratic fashion. But I don't know if that makes sense, but those were a couple of things I jotted down.
I also, before we go on to the next thing, I wanted to add that just as an addendum to that that way, it's not all totally at the whim of the boss, right? Like if you get it into a contract, then there are mechanisms for amending it and renegotiating it. And so, like Adam said, if somebody comes in after you or somebody buys your company or something like that, they can't just willy-nilly change everything. They've got to bargain it with the employees. And even if something happens to you, I mean, there's sometimes that people change. Right? People change. Maybe you're treating your employees well now, but maybe something happens down the road and you become like a different person who is like not as nice to his employees as he is now. Then you would have that. Then your employees would have that protection against a changed, Phoenix Dukes. But also, I wanted to push back just a bit on your contention that. I've put all this risk into the company, building it up, and so I want to have all the say so. And this is something that we've talked about on the show before. We've talked about risk, but because that's something that people will actually say, right? Like, Elon Musk put up all this risk, or whoever. Well, from the apartheid minds that his parents had, right? But really quickly, the risk. Let's actually think about what the risk is, because I think people just say that and they don't really think about what is the risk. What is the risk? And so what people mean when they say risk is if something goes poorly, then this would happen, right? So if something goes poorly, if the worst case scenario happened for an owner, what is that? The worst case scenario for an owner, for a boss, for a capitalist, is that they become a worker, right? The worst case scenario for you or for Elon Musk is that you just become like the rest of us. So I'm not like when people say like, oh, I put up all this risk, like I'm very impressed by that. Because
what if somebody runs over? What if somebody's in a skid steer and they run over someone?
You lose your business and you become
no
a worker.
one has a job. No one has a job.
Yeah, and you become a worker.
It's not even. We're not even. No,
we don't. No,
we go to jail.
We go to jail. We need in prison. That's bad. But that's like again, that's like worst case scenario. Like, and people like I've talked to people that tell me it's like, well, what's your issue with people that smoke weed and blah blah blah? And I was like, I don't have it. I personally don't have an issue with people that do drugs. I think all drugs should be legal. I think you should have the freedom to fail and the freedom to succeed off of your own choices. I believe in actual freedom. Like, you have the freedom to succeed or you have the freedom to fail. You can choose. Now, obviously, if all drugs were legal, there would be consequences to doing that in the public, and it would affect people that don't do drugs at all. So that's neither here nor there. But people ask me that, and they're like, well, weed isn't that bad. You know, it's not really that bad of a drug and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, if I hire somebody that is high on the job, they can't get workers' compensation if they get hurt, first of all, because they're going to fail their drug test. So, that would be a moral issue with me because I knew you did drugs and I still let you go out here and operate this heavy machinery on somebody else's property. That's a no-go. Second of all, if you're high at work and you hurt somebody else, that person might not even be doing anything wrong. They might not even be doing drugs. They were just doing their job and you ran over them with a skid steer. By the way, you would not feel that. You wouldn't feel it at all.
At all.
Like,
you would not know at all.
Until somebody started yelling at you and there's a flat piece of people on the ground. Like, you wouldn't know. Of people. So it's to protect the people that are working around you, just like the United States kind of does. It's to, like, all drugs are legal to protect the people that are around other people. So now
the bucket alone could kill you.
It's just really bad. So but for the worst case scenario would be me not having enough customers to fund the business and the business goes under. Not go bankrupt. The business goes under. The business, we don't have any business. Nobody wants any services from us. Nobody wants to use us. That would be the worst case scenario. We wouldn't turn back into workers. That's not, our fear is to not be workers. Because Elon Musk is a worker. Elon Musk works incredibly hard and has worked incredibly hard. He's failed countless times. He failed with PayPal. Like, I mean, he failed with the first 3 rockets that he tried to push out. But he's also done a tremendous amount of good with the hard work that he's put in. And Jacob knows I love Elon Musk. I'm an Elon Musk. I'm definitely a fan. Just some of the stuff I just think it's so cool. Some of the stuff that he's done. I mean, this man's working his body to the bone to try to put us on another planet. Regardless if you agree with that or not, that's a feat that's never been like, who's the closest out of anybody that's ever alive? Elon Musk right now. Neuralink. He's putting chips in monkeys' brains so that they can play video games. And he's going to try to use that to try to help people that can't move their limbs. Like stuff like the Boring Company that's building freaking tunnels in Los Angeles to alleviate the traffic that's going on inside of Los Angeles, which is terrible. But I mean, there's just so much risk, like when it comes to finances. And that's what you're talking about, Jacob. If you lose all your money, then you go back to being a worker. Elon Musk put up more money than some people make in 10 to 100 lifetimes. So if he put up a lot of risk and it works out for him, then he should get a lot of reward. Walt Disney sold his house, sold his car, sold his brother's car, just so that he could animate and make the mouths move on a screen. it worked out for him. So we know who Walt Disney is, and he owned one of the biggest entertainment companies of this day. But if that didn't work out for him, he'd just be some homeless dude walking around. Like, we wouldn't even know who he is. But these people put up all of this risk so that they could go out and hire other people and give the masses a place to work and an income to feed their families. So my question is, and because I heard you talking about paying employees well, Adam. My question is, what are you guys' issues when it comes to people that put up all the risks? Do you not like people that put up all the risks, or do you feel like what? I just want to see where the point of contention is when it comes to billionaires and millionaires, because those are the people that are providing jobs to hundreds of thousands of people, and everybody just can't. They can't do that. They just can't.
Jacob, you want to go first? You want me?
I think he asked you. You go ahead.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Well, yeah, I got a couple things to say on that. I would say I don't have any problem with people putting up risk. I think, that's part of life. That's how we make breakthroughs in society, is people take risk. And so there's nothing wrong with like an entrepreneurial spirit. A couple of the things I would push back on is first of all, like I said earlier, I think wealth is created by labor. Without the people who work at Tesla, there's no product to sell. There's no money coming into Tesla. The thing about the billionaires, I mean, we live in a society that is so extremely unequal that the pharaohs of Egypt, the kings of France would be jealous of the Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos of this world. Because I'm going to quote some statistics here. I really, really hope I'm getting this right. But I believe that the total wealth in the United States, all wealth, not just income, but all wealth, the top 1% own the 33% of it. The top 10% own 70%. Meanwhile, the bottom 50%, literally half of our country, has about 2% of the entire wealth. Now, you can't tell me that is. Because we have an unequal distribution of power.
Oh, come on now.
Capital is power. Capital is power. Elon Musk has power in a way that you won't have and I won't have.
Hey, don't.
That, you don't know about me.
Don't know about that.
Okay,
right,
fair enough.
Now, my dad doesn't own an Emerald Farm, so
right.
That's
so you're already behind.
But
you're already behind the starting gun. Yeah, you are. And you're also not white. And that also makes it more difficult in this country.
No.
I'm so glad you said that, bro. Because I didn't want to be the one to say it, but I'm so glad you said that, bro. Continue.
Okay. Sure. Yeah. I mean,
not white.
I don't want to open a can of worms there. But so anyway, inequality is incompatible at some level with democracy. And we don't have a democratic society when so few own so much and so many own so little. And ultimately, without working people, there is no economy, right?
Well,
we build the roads, we build the planes, we fly the planes, we drive the trains, we grow the food. Money that grows its own money, which is ultimately what most capitalists are in a situation, right? They have money that is growing its own money.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, the vast majority of human beings in this country and across the world, we don't have that. We don't have property that can grow enough to sustain our living.
But why is that though? What's the cause? Why?
That's capitalism. I mean, that's capitalism.
No, but there's
wealth is not distributed equally.
There's got to be a reason, and you have to be able to.
Right. There's a capitalist class. There's a capitalist class that owns the means of production. The vast majority of us do not own the means of production. We don't have ownership in the economy. Our only choice is to go out and sell our labor to a capitalist and hope it's enough to survive.
No, that is not your only choice. That's not your only choice.
For the vast majority of people in this country and around the world, that is it. Maybe
that's what they chose. That's what they chose, though, Adam. They chose. Do you want to own the means of production?
I want all of us to democratically own
No,
the means of
you,
production.
Adam, Keller,
Absolutely
wanna
not,
own the
because
means of production?
I do not, and here's why. I don't think I'm better than anybody else, and I don't think anybody else is better than me. And that's ultimately my philosophy when it comes to life and when it comes to the economy and when it comes to society. I'm not better than anybody else. Nobody
We're not
else is
better, but
than
we're
me.
not the same. We're definitely not the same. The guy that's standing
We're
on the
not-
streets that's
We're
homeless.
not the same. No, you're not the same, but that doesn't justify him not having a home. Just as if Elon Musk legitimately is smarter than me, which frankly I question that, but even if he is, that doesn't justify. Hey, I haven't my list of failures.
Come on, Adam.
You know,
We live in
listen.
America.
Okay, this grant that he is smarter than me. He's a brilliant person who's just that much more intelligent than me.
You think that
That doesn't justify.
IQ, though?
So is that how we should run society? Should we all take IQ tests and whoever scores the best gets the most property?
You got me there. I'm not saying that we should
know?
do that. I'm not saying we should have
want to compare ACT
a number above our
scores?
heads. A number above our heads, like, oh, your IQ's this. So yeah,
Right.
Go ahead. Go ahead and no.
We all have
society
different.
that way. No, we shouldn't.
We all
You're
have
right.
different strengths and we all have different talents and skills. And I don't think the way those talents and skills, some of them are innate, some of them are based on choices you make, but the collection of those talents and skills, positives and negatives, should not translate into some people own the economy and the rest of us don't have a say in it.
But
we live in America, though, Adam. No,
that's what America's about. Like, you have the opportunity to go out there and get it, and it's not illegal to take it from somebody else. It's not illegal to do that. If somebody
I'm
else
not with
says,
that. I'm not against covenant. I'm not trying to take somebody
it's not
else's
like
stuff.
stealing. It's not stealing somebody else's stuff. But if somebody else said, man, I really like, they have a problem. It's like, man, I really wish that I could figure out a solution to me to so that I could be warm even in the winter. And then somebody else said, and then 10 years later, the coat is made.
I'm so glad you said that, Phoenix.
That person has provided a value to something that he has taken 10 years of his life to build, make, manufacture, and produce. And he has provided a value to millions and billions of people. So I feel like he should be compensated for that value. If each coat is $10 and you sell that coat to 2 million people, you got $20 million now. And so instead of taking that $20 million and just paying the production of building the coat, now you're like, I need to take this $20 million and hire more people so I can sell more coats. Let me give these people jobs and let me pay them so they can sell their labor here and work so that they can make these other. And you know what the difference between the people that come in there and work and the people that have the mindset of entrepreneurial spirit and the people that have the mindset of abundance? Somebody else said, I'm not going to work in this coat factory. I'm going to make a different coat. I'm going to make a new brand. And I'm going to have my brand better than the brand that first got put. If y'all think the first coat is worse or is better than the coats we have now, absolutely not. Somebody else decided to stack on that knowledge and built something that was better than the one that came out previously. Just like with the iPhone, well, not really with the iPhone, but with Android phones, like it gets better every year normally, right? It gets better every year. So I just, when you say,
I mean, I don't think that either of us don't reckon that people should be compensated for their time and their labor and their ideas. I think that's actually like the entire thing
put a cap on it.
that we're about. I think that we reckon people should be compensated for their time and their labor and ideas. And I think that includes, that includes the workers. And I think that the way that people are compensated, and like Adam said, I think that similarly, I'm not interested in owning myself a business again, because I don't believe that. I think that everybody who works in a project should have a say over it, and I don't think that just because you started it or you happen to have the capital to begin it, I don't think that ought to give you sole discretion over how it's run, because you can't I think that people should have sole discretion over things that they can do themselves.
Right.
I think that if you're able to run a business and you can do it completely by yourself, then I think go
More
ham.
power to you.
More power to you, and wish you the best of luck. But I think the moment that you involve another person, I think you have to relinquish some of your power. Now does that mean you have to relinquish all of it? Does that mean that the first person that you bring in to like go get your mail or answer your phone, does that mean that they should have 50% voting power in everything that you do? Not necessarily. But I think that they should have a say. And I think that the more people that you bring in, I think the less say that the boss and the capitalist should have. And I think that and I think that would be in proportion to how valuable they are in the company. So I think that if you're in a company and you're it's you and one other person, and you're like, putting in, a whole lot of hours, you're really thinking about how to improve the company. And this other person is just doing exactly what they're telling you to, I think obviously it makes more sense for you to have more of a say. And I think that one person can do the work of two people. So I think if you hire on two people, I think that it makes sense that you have more of a say than them. And even 3 or 4 people, you start going beyond that. And then you just can't do everything that you're getting these other people to do. And so I think that they deserve some amount of say. And then I think that once you start getting to ridiculous corporations like Amazon and Tesla and all these things, I think that,
which is why we have shareholders.
You could replace, the people at the top with a whole lot of other people. And things would be able to run fine, but you couldn't get rid of every single employee.
Well, that's why companies have executives, right? Because it is. I know, Adam, you said you don't really agree with like the hierarchy and stuff like that, but in reality, that's how companies are really ran. Like the CEO, the COO, the CMO, like all these people. The owner of that business is trickling down and hiring the people that he needs to run that business, so that if anything happens to him, the business still runs, everybody still has a job. Because at the end of the day, you might say that once you get over 4, 5, 6, 7 employees and they can do more work than you can do by yourself, if you're asking me, they should be, in my mind, I had to build that company up in order for them to be able to work there at all. Like, because it costs a substantial amount of money to be able to hire 5 people. If you're hiring 5 people, that you need to be making a substantial amount of income. Like, because, and I'm sure I'll put you guys a standard of what you guys think people should be getting paid. So, Adam, let me ask you this: if you were coming in for a landscape job, let's say you didn't have a degree. I'm not Adam, Jacob. Let's say you didn't have a degree. That's what you do. But let's say you didn't, and you came in and you wanted to get a job working for my company. And I asked you what I asked everybody: hey, how much would you like to be paid per hour? What would you say?
Oh, I don't think you could pay me enough to go work for a landscaping company. I think I like my nice clickety clackety 9-to-5 office job. I think you're going to have a hard time pulling me from it. But to entertain the hypothetical.
What should we? And this is a better question. What should, in your opinion, what should we be paying our guys to go out here and work?
A living wage.
Yeah.
I think every single worker deserves a living wage. Every single worker is enough to sustain a decent life, and you can measure that in around $15 an hour. Typically, is considered a living wage in most areas, not in some. So I think every worker deserves if a worker works and they exchange their labor, the wage they get in exchange should be enough to sustain themselves. And if a business owner can't afford to do that, I'm sorry, but their right to have the business is not more important than the right of a worker to live a life. And maybe at some point that business can't operate because of whatever reason they're not being profitable by paying a living wage. But the thing is, in our society, in our economy, we must have labor. We must have workers. We don't need capitalists. We need capital, but we don't need capitalists.
Without the capitalists, you don't have a place to come and work at.
No,
The government can create jobs. Employees can create.
The Department of Defense is the biggest employer.
It is. That's the biggest welfare program in this country.
They employ the most people. But in order, but you're thinking of one thing, and I don't really, the Department of Defense is technically a business, but I'm not even thinking about that. If I come in and we build roads, right? If I come in and I hire 10 guys and they think that they should be allowed to have more power than me when I built the business to be able to bring you in and pay you, I paid for all of the heavy equipment to build these roads that are hundreds of thousands of dollars. I paid for the trucks.
How'd you get all that money?
Because I worked for it, Adam. I worked for it.
Well,
I took out a loan. Maybe I took out a loan from the bank. Maybe I used somebody
Adam, I'm
else's
still
money.
stuck on that. You said that we're not white, and you said the only way to own. Excuse
No.
me.
I never said only anything. I did say that in this country, it is harder to advance when you're a minority.
You use the word only.
No,
you use
I don't
the word
agree with
only.
that, Adam. Come on, Adam.
You use the word only, though.
If I use that, then I retract that. I
No,
apologize.
you just can't say it. You can't just retract it because we can go back. You definitely said only. Use the word only,
Okay.
and you said we're not white, and the only way is to exchange your time for a salary, right? We can go back, and if I'm wrong, correct me. But I definitely remember you saying that.
All right. Let me clear this up. Then the vast majority of people in this country, on this earth, are working people whose only real practical option, not theoretical, but practical option, is to go work for somebody. That is the default for most people.
Have you guys traveled outside of the country?
Yes, I have. And I do think that it is more difficult to advance as a person of color in this country. And it's not me thinking that. That is statistically borne out. That is 100% true.
I agree.
Factual. Inequality is racially skewed, just as it's skewed by gender and other identities. I mean, that
now,
we have
that.
So look, Phoenix definitely, and I'm so glad you said that, Adam, because Phoenix definitely does. Now here, I agree.
Fine.
I agree with you on that, but I think now in 2022, we have more opportunity with grants. Black women definitely have more opportunities. So I see. Now, I don't know the facts on that.
Women in general. I know people I know business owners that are switching the ownership of their companies from them to their wives just so they can get grants.
Mm-hmm.
And these grants are coming from the government. You guys have got to understand something, that the government, and with the tax code, the way that grants are pushed out for certain things, our business is a federal contract. Like we can work for the federal government and do work for the federal government. But I will not push out in 2022 that it is harder for a black person to advance than it is for a white person to advance. That is not something I'm going to tell my children. Me and Sherrod are statistical anomalies in every sense of the word. I didn't grow up in a two-parent household. I grew up in a single-parent household. I should be in jail. A. Sherrod grew up in St. Louis in a two-parent household. Sherrod should be dead. B. But instead, we decided we were going to put the work in, the mental work, the physical work, the spiritual work too, which we're still putting in to this day, so that we could get ahead of the curve and put in the risk and do something that somebody else isn't doing, which is why I asked you why you think that most people think that their only choice is to go and work for somebody else. Do you think most people know how to start a business?
No, I don't. And I think most people don't have the capacity in terms of their personal lifestyle, the money available to them.
Excuses.
Especially that's fine. That's fine. That's fine.
I mean, if you're a white male, right? So if you're a white male, you automatically get loans. And I didn't want to bring that up because I don't really know the statistics on that, but you brought it up. So let's just talk about it. You can go in a bank, you're getting a loan. We walk in a bank, we're getting denied. These are the facts. Right? We're getting denied. We got denied.
Phoenix may disagree there.
He doesn't because we definitely got denied. He got denied. So
we have got denied. We definitely have gotten denied. But I mean, if I continue to push that out into the world, I would not tell people that they only have one choice. We talk to people every day. Me and Sherrod talk to people every day, or half of Sherrod, whatever's showing up on the screen right now. We talk to people every day. And they honestly think that the only choice that they have is to go and work for somebody else. And the people that everybody has dreams. That's what our channel is focused on. That's what the No Excuses podcast started on. Everybody's got dreams and goals. You guys have dreams and goals. Adam, you've got goals. Jacob's got goals too. Regardless of what your goals are is none of my business. But what is my business is your success. That's what we do. Your success is my business.
Yeah.
So if I tell you, hey man, I know you're doing everything right, but sometimes your skin's just melanated and you just can't get it. Like you just can't get it. You're just too dark. Like I will not tell them that, because there are black men out here and black women out here that are really doing well. And they decided to push past the excuses and go out here and get it done somehow, some way. Because the only way, I don't preach own a business to everybody, because owning a business isn't the only way that you can be successful. Success is different for each person. Success for me is creating a life for my family that's like the best life that I can put in. And I'm willing to put my body and my mind on the line in order to do that for my kids and for my future wife. So I just don't understand how you can say, like, there was probably certain kids in your classroom that you were like, man, like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do with that guy. He doesn't listen. He's always talking in class. Like he just doesn't pay attention. Like, I don't understand how you think you're going to go anywhere in life if you don't do these things. If you don't do these things. But that's not their only choice. There's some millionaires that don't even preach school to their children. So it's just like,
It's some millionaires that can't even read. Some of these rappers.
Well, so I think that, a couple of things that I want to try to see if I can't bring everybody to a bit of an understanding, and because I completely get where you're coming from, Phoenix, about I don't want to make people feel like
demographics are destiny.
Exactly.
Because they're not.
Exactly.
And I don't want anyone to think that was, the message I'm conveying. Sorry.
I think that, but I think that's exactly right.
It's harder.
And I think, well, I think that there's a difference between, descriptively talking about reality and then prescriptively telling people how they should behave, knowing that description. Right. So I think that it's actually incumbent on us to accurately describe the world. And I think in order to accurately describe the world, I think that we have to recognize that some people face unique difficulties. And so I think that now a difficulty is not an impossibility. And it's certainly not. And I think that actually unions are some of the best pathways to a good, decent, middle-class life for people from underserved backgrounds where it's more difficult for them to get into other industries. I talked to somebody the other day who happened to be white, but he had some other things that were going for him that made him face unique difficulties. And that was, he has a rap, right? He's been to prison. He's been on drugs. He joined the Ironworkers Union, made it through their apprenticeship program. Now he's making, $35 an hour. He's got a wife. He's got a kid. He owns a house, all of this stuff. Wow, that's really good. So descriptively, it is more difficult to have a good life if you were at one point a drug addict. It is more difficult to have a good life if you have at one point been to jail, right? And I think that's just descriptively how the world works.
Certain places you can't work.
Certain places you can't work. But what is that? Does that mean that when I accurately describe the world, does that mean that I'm telling you if you've been a drug addict, well, you go shoot yourself now, you're never going to amount to anything? No, of course not. I'm just describing the world. And so what do we do with that? Well, one of the things that we tell people to do that is consider a trade union apprenticeship program. Go to the Ironworkers local union hall, go to the electrical workers local union hall, go to the pipe fitters local union hall, and see if you can get into their apprenticeship program, and you can end up making $35, $45, $50 an hour, $60 an hour. I talked to a pipe fitter, didn't have a college degree. He was in the union. He made $250,000 in 1 year in the union, right? And so I want to make sure that we understand that, like, we're not saying that, okay, look, we're just saying that sometimes some people, because of this or that reason, face unique difficulties. That doesn't mean that they can't succeed or they can't have a good life, right? And I think that's all that Adam was saying, as far as just recognizing the discrepancies based on color in this country. And I think that that's just a description of reality. And I think that how we respond to that is different. But then, and also, I think I also agree with the only practical choice that a lot of people have is going to be going and working for somebody. And I think that you have a lot of choice about where you go to work. You don't have a lot of choice about what jobs are available in your area, and moving is very capital intensive. Capital is very important, even if capitalists aren't. And so these are things that make it difficult practically for working people to be able to navigate the world. And so of course, you're going to be able to say that, okay, sure, maybe I can start a business, and you could, no, maybe. But you could. Can. Okay, a person may be able to start a business, but I mean,
anybody can start a business.
Anybody can start a business, but you've got to have it. I mean, there's only so many. Not everybody. Here's a fact.
You don't have to do that. No, everybody.
Here's a fact, though. Not everybody. It is just factual that not everybody can be a business owner. So factually, some people are going to have to work for somebody else, and also factually, the majority of people are going to have to work for somebody else. Because you can't have a society where you have 150 million small businesses, right? There are 300 million people in the country. You can't have 150
small
million
businesses on TikTok. We're all making money, right? If you do TikTok, you're a small business.
Not the same.
You're a small business. You're a small entertainment company.
That's a small content creator.
Well, here's what actually, though, we are a small we are incorporated as a small business nonprofit, but we're run democratically. Right? I don't, Adam can't tell me what to do without consulting everybody else. And even though, like, in some ways I'm like the face of the show, right? If all the other 6 people that are involved in the project got together and voted according to our bylaws, I would have to leave. That would be that, because that's how we've structured the company, because we've given everybody a say.
Now, we're not doing that. Me and Sherrod are business partners as well. We own businesses together. If I came to Sherrod and we got our board of directors together and I said, hey, I don't care that Sherrod has $135,000 in equipment sitting at the shop right now. Bump him. It's time that he takes a walk, kick rocks. Well, why is that? Well, he's just been being rude to customers and, blah, blah, blah. And they're just like, and Sherrod walks in and he's like, what y'all talking about? It's like, my name on this building too. So it's just like the democratic thing. We don't even run our country as a democracy. So it's
an issue.
It's a problem. Now I'm all for it, as you can probably tell, but I'm using the tools that the government against my what I think should happen. They didn't teach us this stuff in school. They don't teach you in school how to start a business. School is built. And I already know I'm going to get some flack for saying this. School is built to make you a better employee.
Or a better prisoner.
Yeah. I actually agree with that. I think you're both right.
If you really think about it, you come in at 7. You
the
go
bell
to lunch
rings at 12 for lunch.
Right.
You stay at school for about 8 hours. You do your work. You do homework. You get a grade. And then if you do well, you get to go up to the next grade.
You get told to go outside to the yard for recess.
Yeah. I mean, it's sports and all that other stuff is a different part of it.
You're not going to find any pushback on the industrial model of education from me, because I was in the inside. I know the flaws for sure.
Adam's like,
how much better it could be.
Adam's like, I was in it.
I know how much better it could be. And you're right. That is the mentality. It is workforce preparedness. It's right. That's, and they even are pretty explicit about that they tell you like, you're being trained to know how to show up on time, how to follow directions, how to turn in stuff by due date. So, I mean, I would agree with you on that.
Why do you think some of the best hiccups. Why do you think some of the best business owners were some of the worst students?
Well, I think the skills don't necessarily translate. And I would also say that being a successful business owner comes from having a lot of money, either access to it or you already have it.
You don't have to have a lot of money.
All you need in the state of Alabama is $230 to start a business, right? $230.
I'm not talking about a $230 business. I'm talking about a business that employs hundreds or thousands or millions of people.
But you just said a business, though.
No business starts out that way.
Yeah, it has to start somewhere, bro.
Somewhere. And they build it up.
Yeah, I mean, to Jacob's point, you can't.
It starts with apartheid emerald mines,
right?
But that's such a minority, though. That's such a. And then
is it
actually how much of a minority do you think an origin story like that is among the billionaire class? I mean,
versus the bootstraps, you know, from nothing. I mean, because statistically, they're more likely than not to have been born into it.
I feel like if your family has it, they earned it from somewhere. They didn't shit it out.
Yeah, from the actual people who mined the emeralds in apartheid South Africa. That's the people that earned the money. That Elon Musk.
In some cases, it was from slaves, literal slaves.
That's the people. Like Elon Musk should get all of his money to the apartheid emerald miners in South Africa. That is theirs.
Definitely ODing right now.
Yeah, but you got to understand, for them to be able to work in those mines, they have to be paid. Where's the money come from?
From the people who mined before them.
You have to pay to hire guys. You have to pay to hire people. Like when I tell a guy you're making $40,000 a year, in reality, I'm probably spending around 53 to 56, right? 56,000 or so after.
Yeah, I know. For example, with the Ironworkers Union, their actual rate of pay is $32 to $35 an hour, starting out as a journeyman, but their total compensation package is like $47, $50 an hour once you can consider all the retirement and pension.
But I mean, even with that, if your family, and that's all about generational wealth. So it sounds to me like you guys don't really like the concept of generational wealth because you don't feel like people should be able to have that much wealth.
Or didn't come from it. Because I don't see you guys, your dad giving you money and say, you know what, Dad, that's cool. I ain't work for that. Just keep it.
Most of us don't ever have that option. And
but that's cool. That's cool. But it sounds like, but if you did, you would not take it, or you're hating on the people.
Listen, if I win the lottery, hell yeah, I'm cashing it in.
Are you also okay?
Wait a minute.
So when you win the lottery, are you giving it to some people that's unfortunate, less fortunate than you?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. Man,
Great.
I'll tell you what,
how many extra bedrooms do you have in your room right now? How many extra bedrooms do you have in your room right now? In your house?
We really come on now.
You're being ridiculous. Come on, bro. That's a valid thing, Adam.
Come on,
that's valid. Because
what are you saying? I should let someone stay in my house right now?
Should I give somebody some of my money that I work for?
What I'm arguing is that you alone didn't work for anything. All wealth in this country, it comes from labor. Without people working, without people
and you didn't build that home by yourself either.
No, workers did. But some contractor capitalist took a big fat cut off the top of it.
Because he's the one that built the company for them to be able to go out and do that.
But see, here's what we're saying though, is that
he paid for all the materials.
People there are other ways. There are ways to cooperatively purchase materials and cooperatively.
No, that's not how we do it. It's not your job.
That's not how you do it. But
it's not your job.
No company's doing that.
To come in and
say, hey, bro,
where's those expenses? That is not your job. Your job is to come in, clock in, work. I pay you. You don't have to come in and say, I'm going to pay for my own insurance. If I offer an insurance package for health, vision, and dental, you get that when you come in to work for me, and I pay for that, and you pay me back from me taking a little bit of a cut from your paycheck or whatever to pay for it. It's very expensive. But if we're building a house and I have a contracting company and I hire you, I'm not hiring you and be like, Adam, where's the wood? He was like, hey man, I don't have enough money to pay for half of the wood for this house. Like, I don't.
No, I understand exactly what you're saying.
If you paid for half the wood, you would get half of that big check that the guy that owns the company would get.
No, I get what you're saying. I'm not disputing that. What I'm suggesting is that there are alternative business models where it is not what you're describing.
Show me.
Where?
I need the facts.
Worker cooperatives are historic. They exist all over. They're out there. But that's what I'm saying is you can't build a house without workers there to build it. Somehow, the government could provide materials. All of us as workers could come in together and provide materials. A charity could provide materials, right? You don't need an individual named a boss to make a house become built. You do need workers to build the house.
You don't think that we need bosses?
No.
What
is the military then?
Well, the military well, the military is a military, right? And I don't think workers should be treated like they're in the military. I don't believe in hierarchy.
But the military model does work because
it keeps you safe.
Soldiers.
It keeps you safe. It keeps invaders from coming over here and sniping you.
Yeah, but we're saying treating people like soldiers. But the military model does work, especially when we're about to get into our next topic about you guys when it comes to disrespect in the workplace. Because in the military, I went to military college, so Sherrod was in the Army as well. So if Sherrod is an officer and I am enlisted and Sherrod is a higher rank than me, while I may hate Sherrod's guts, I will respect that rank. Even if I don't respect Sherrod, I will.
Simply because I know it's downrange and he has to come back home to his family. I know it's downrange. He has to come back home to his family. If he doesn't, it's on my back, on my name, on my rank, on my pay grade.
So if a boss doesn't do what he needs to do to make sure that the business is running the way that it needs to run, workers don't get paid. You start getting just like Amazon's doing right now.
Right.
You start cutting 10,000 employees in your executive office. Elon Musk is firing people, and I believe he's firing them because they're not actually working. They go to 45-minute meetings, drink us some wine, and go home. But should it be ran like the military? In some aspects, I do think it should be, but that's just us, and it's worked for us. But in other aspects, it can't be run like the military because this isn't the military. There's certain things in the military that fly that will not fly in the private sector. But we believe in free market, man. If you, especially when it comes down to pay, if you don't like how much you're getting paid here, then you need to if you feel like you're worth more, then you need to go somewhere and have somebody else agree that you're worth more so that they will pay you more. Then you're not
that option's not available.
You're not worth more.
So some people
I don't agree with that.
A life of dignity, or really, are we going to say that some people aren't worth a life of dignity? Because ultimately, that's what it boils down to.
What do you mean? What do you mean by that?
What do you
Safe,
mean?
Secure housing, food, water, clothing,
the essential time. Person though, Adam. Like when people say living wage, that my neurons they stop firing.
Pay enough to have a cost of living, right? You literally cannot survive on $7.25 an hour. You cannot.
But there aren't that many people that are getting paid $7.25 an hour either. That's like
and
a
they
very
shouldn't
small
be.
percentage
They
of the
shouldn't
company.
be.
I mean, that's a small percentage of the world. Like, I mean, it's.
I would say
it's all subjective on your lifestyle at the end of the day. It's subjective on your lifestyle because some people like we talked about on our podcast. If you decided
to have 3 children, should I pay you something more than what you're worth just because you decided to have 3 children?
If you decided to smoke your bong every night, right? Should I have to pay you to support that?
Weed down.
Yeah.
Should I pay so that you can to support your way of living?
No,
or should I pay you a percentage, which is normally what happens? Should I pay you a percentage of the amount of revenue that the business makes? Because what is the Adam and Jacob? This is the question I want you guys to answer. What is the highest expense in any business The highest expense. What's most of the money spent on?
In most cases, it's labor cost.
Employees. They get between 40 to 80% of the labor revenue of these companies. And then, so if I put up all of the risk to get in this business, I know how you feel about risk taking. I'm just saying, if I put in 40%, if I put in all of this risk to have this business so that you can come in and you can work here and I can pay you $40,000 a year when I'm really only spending $57,000 a year to have you here. And that's without benefits. Like I want to be able to give my workers health insurance, vision, dental, but that's not common in the landscape industry for people to have health insurance, vision, dental, 401k match, and all this other stuff. It's not a common occurrence, especially for a company.
Sounds like you need Medicare for all. If we had a Medicare for all national health system,
we're not going to get into the topic. We're not going to get into the topic of fucking.
I'm just teasing you, man.
I'm definitely not. I know a person. I know a little girl from Canada they have free healthcare. Which it's free, but taxes and whatnot. But it is, free healthcare, and she's dead now because she was 260 something on the list, and she had a really bad brain tumor. But if they had private companies and they were paying a premium for that service, then she would have been able to get in there. Like, I don't want to play with my life like that. Anyway, when we have these businesses and people are telling us, because I've had people come to me and they say, I want to be paid $30 now to work at a lawn care company. I want to be paid $40 an hour to work at a lawn care company. And then we give them a weed eater and they can't even start the weed eater.
They're flooding the engine.
And I have to train them on how to do this stuff, to do my company's way. And I have to put money into them when I hire them. I have to pay them money and then put money into them to train them. If they break something, it's on me. All this equipment that I have is on me. Like, if I put in all of this money into this business, and it's doing so well that I'm able to hire people and I'm doing $3 million, $4 million, $5 million a year, shouldn't I get a majority cut of the business? Shouldn't I get all the money that's left over from paying people? Shouldn't that money go to me?
So there, no, I don't think so.
You don't think the money?
Here's the thing. Without, like I said before, and I don't want to sound like a broken record, but without labor, there is no economy. Without labor, there is no business, right? There's no products that are being made. There's no services being offered. A capitalist can have the most brilliant idea. They could be the smartest person in the world, but unless someone will literally work to implement that, it doesn't happen. But something you said earlier that I wanted to go back to before we move on was that you two are statistical anomalies, which proves my point. Because as Jacob said, there's what's real and then there's like how we should behave. And I think every single person should try to live the best life they can and make the best choices they can and work hard to do right, be responsible. Totally believe in personal responsibility. Absolutely, I do believe in personal responsibility.
But y'all don't think billionaires and millionaires should be able to exist?
That's correct.
That's right.
Because
so you don't believe that. So if you believe that I should be able to go out and work as hard as I can, why am I going to work as hard as I can if I'm not able to achieve as much wealth as I can too? If I work as hard as I can,
do you think that the hardest? Who do you think would be?
Oh, you already know what you're about to ask.
Yes. Who would you say would be the hardest working people in the country right now?
The hardest working people in the country?
Yeah. You said you were like, why would I have the incentive to work hard if I can't make, millions or billions of dollars? Who do you think the hardest working people in the country are right now?
Well, so that would depend. That would depend on what they're doing, but I don't really know who the hardest working people, because
I think
we're talking about individuals. We're not talking about.
I would say probably some of the hardest working people in the country right now are the folks on the West Coast, documented and undocumented immigrants who work from sunup to sundown in the desert heat, pulling crops for $10 a ton. I think those are probably some of the most hardworking people in the country. and they do it from sun up to sundown every day without hardly any benefits. They make significantly less than any of us on this call do, I feel comfortable in assuming. And yet they're working really, really hard, and they're not millionaires and billionaires. And so I think that lots of people work hard without there are lots of reasons that people will work hard. I work hard when I work. I don't want to work all the time. I want to have leisure time. I want to spend time with my fiance. I want to spend time with my dog. I want to, I want to be able to, go to cookouts and all this stuff. But when I work, I do work, and I work hard, and I do that to support the mission of my agency, which I believe in. I believe that the energy division of the agency that I work for is important, and I think that we have a good mission, and I believe in it, and I want to see it succeed. And I want to support my coworkers. I want to support the people that I work with, and I want to do a good job. And I like doing a good job. It feels good to do a good job, and I don't need the incentive of being a billionaire. I don't need, and most people, the vast majority of people in this country work hard without that incentive. So I think that's, that doesn't really make, that doesn't make sense to me,
but they don't work. Do you think that they're, like you said, you want to spend time with your fiance, you want to spend time with your kids, you want to do all this stuff?
I don't want to do all of that. I'm willing to sacrifice my,
We're sacrificing.
And Sherrod, I hope that I hope that you make more money than I do. If you're working harder, I hope that you do. I hope that you do. And there are people, like I said, that pipe fitter guy who made $250,000 in 1 year working on a job. That guy worked a lot, and I worked, and I volunteered for the Hurricane Ida recovery down in New Orleans. And I worked 7/12.